Good afternoon. This is the professor, Dr. Ron Daniels, president of the Institute of the Black World 21st Century and distinguished lecturer at York College, distinguished lecturer emeritus from York College, City University of New York. I welcome you to this January 11th White Nationalist Insurrection Assault on the Capitol of the United States and Democracy edition of Vantage Point here on 99.5 WBAI, 99.5 FM. That's on the Pacifica Network in collaboration with ycradio.org. That's right, the York College radio station is connected to this audience. Well, what can I say? We are going to deal today with this issue. But before I do anything, again, we want everybody to be safe. We got to talk about a bunch of safety today. We now really got to, there's been a long time coming, this kind of insurrection that we're facing. That's a virus too. The virus of white supremacy and racism in full bloom and display. But we also want you to be safe from the coronavirus pandemic. Please take care of each other. This thing is exploding out of control, in part because of the criminality, the criminal failure of leadership of Agent Orange. I mean, it is absolutely despicable what is happening. But we don't have to cooperate. Dr. Betty Shabazz once said, we may be oppressed, but we do not have to cooperate with our oppressors. So we can be disciplined by wearing our mask, practicing social distancing, washing our hands, and taking care of each other as people. And by people, I mean all human beings, all human beings. Obviously, Black communities and brown communities are being most impacted, but let's take care of all human beings. Well, our show today is entitled Trumpism and White Nationalism, the Assault on Democracy, an eyewitness to insurrection. We had hoped to have just been informed really just before coming on the air that Congressman Gregory Meeks, who was to be my eyewitness because he was there and agreed to be on the show, may not be able to be on the show. We've asked him, can he connect at the bottom of the hour? He's literally in a leadership meeting right now discussing the question of impeachment, how to do it, when to do it, and how it may come about. That doesn't matter. What we are going to be talking about and opening up the phones to get your opinions, your ideas. You have been eyewitnesses live. I mean, they said the revolution would not be televised, they said back in the day by the last poets. Well, I'll be damned if we have not seen the insurrection be televised here in these United States of America. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about it because I've been prophesizing about this for quite some time. And then we're going to open up the phones. In fact, you know the number. I'm going to give you the number now because at the bottom of the hour, we are opening up the lines to hear what our audience has to say about that. So just in case, get poised, get ready. 212-209-2877. Is the number to call. Actually, I messed up where. Oh, I got some technical problems here. I got some technical problems. We have to figure out how to do this because again, I had to scramble coming on the air. But that'll be the number 212-209-2877. At the bottom of the hour for you to call in and talk about this experience. And so if Congressman Meeks does call in, we'll connect him hopefully at the bottom of the hour because I have a commentary that I want to do about this. And I'm going to start with that commentary and we'll talk about it and share it. And then we're going to open up the phone line. I don't know how long this is going to take. It may go to the bottom of the hour. It may not. But it is going to be based on my book. I'm going to quote the professor today. This is my book, Still on This Journey. The Vision and Mission of Dr. Ron Daniels, which was released last year. It is a compendium of articles and essays that I've written over the years. And in 2017, I wrote an article which was entitled, let me give you the title of it, Condemning the Message but Not the Messenger. Hypocrisy Taints Republican Reaction to Bigotry. And then I go on to say, a recurring theme in America's history. I'm going to just a few quotes before I take off on this. This is after Charlottesville. I write, The words of the former Ku Klux Klan imperial wizard David Duke captured the motives and aspirations of the largest gathering of white nationalists in recent history. That's right, we got to talk about this. Dr. John Henry Clark warned about white nationalism. Dr. Ronald Walters, one of our most esteemed political scientists, talked about the dangers of white nationalism. White nationalism emanating from white supremacy and rooted deeply in the history of these United States of America, now exploding full force before our very eyes. He said, David Duke, he said, we are determined to take our country back. We are going to fulfill the promises of guess who? Donald Trump. And I wanted to say much of America and the world was shocked by this vile and ugly show of force in the land of the free and the home of the brave. In the same article, by the way, which appears on the IBW website, we reposted it. It's on the IBW website. You can go and read it at your leisure. You can read it now. It's on the IBW website, ibw21.org. I go on to say, in fact, Republicans, and this is what I'm saying over and over again, I don't want to hear anything about these people now who are doing a moonwalk as if they didn't know what the hell was going on. The Republicans enabled Trump by refusing to repudiate him decisively during the campaign and after his election to the White House. I quote my dear friend, Emeritus St. Julia from New Orleans, who has an African prayer in which he writes, principle is more important than power. Principle. I mean, do any of these Republicans have any understanding of what principle is about? Principle is more important than power. But I go on to say that the Republicans made a calculated decision, and I've talked about this before, that power is more important than principle. Power to them, to the orange man, and their accomplices is more important than principle. They stood with Trump despite his erratic and often hurtful behavior. Hurtful. I don't hear these people now talking about, oh, well, we didn't want to censor him. And he was hurting people verbally, accosting them. And you went along with it. And they did this because in hopes of implementing, this is the point, their right-wing reactionary agenda. And then I guess this is my final quote I want to drop into the mix. From the campaign to his brief and horrifying tenure, the president, from the campaign to his brief and horrifying tenure as president, the Republican reactionaries' treatment of Trump represented the height of hypocrisy. I want you to listen to this right now. I don't care what you felt about President Obama. You know, I had my criticism of President Obama. I was proud to have the first Black president and that he was not a reactionary. He was not as visionary as I had hoped he would be, or I thought he could be. You know, I mean, I wanted him to be bolder, but he was not like what we've witnessed. And so one of the things I want to talk about is the Obama effect, which is the same as the Black Lives Matter effect. So I go on to say here, from the campaign to his brief and horrifying tenure as president, this was back in 2017, the Republican reactionaries' treatment of Trump's represents the height of hypocrisy. If President Obama had committed any of Trump's transgressions, any of them, the Republican reactionaries would have condemned him unmercifully and called on him to resign. But by and large, they have refused to condemn and abandon Trump. They know him, they enabled him, and they own him and should suffer the consequences. Let me repeat that again. And they should suffer the consequences of their blatant hypocrisy. That again is in this volume, Still on This Journey, The Vision and Mission of Dr. Ron Daniels, because my book is largely articles and essays, and that article is being reposted on the IBW website. You can go and read it right now. Because the other thing I talk about is, quite frankly, this is not new. I mean, Trump is the result, the bitter harvest of generations, of centuries of racism in this country, that this country has never, ever been willing to face up to. Time and time again, they've dodged it, unwilling to confront the reality of it. From the dispossession of Native people, as one of the original sins, to the enslavement of Africans. And quite frankly, in the Naturalization Act of 1817-90, in which they said openly, basically, that this is a white man's land. They didn't want to include, they didn't, this is white male patriarchy. They didn't include women in it. This was a white man's land, and it goes on and on and on. You know, the Dred Scott decision, the Chinese Exclusion Act, the California Land Act, which was targeted towards Japanese. I mean, this was intended to be a white man's land. And these people can't tolerate the idea that it ain't going to be a white man's land any longer. But the point is, this is not new. And of course, in our most recent history, you know, people talk about the great communicator. What a wonderful president, Ronald Reagan. I don't even call the airport in Washington, D.C. I don't put Reagan National in my mouth. It's still National Airport to me, because Reagan was an imposter, but he wasn't really an imposter. He was pretty clear about it. Nixon and Reagan, the Southern strategy. What was the Southern strategy about? It was about taking advantage of white grievance and white anger, as was manifested by George Wallace. They were interested in what? Power was more important than principle. How do we become elected so we can then put forth our radical right-wing reactionary agenda? So you had the Southern strategy, which was designed to get these white Southerners who are being victimized. That's the other thing. They're being victimized. They're not even aware of that they're being victimized by racism, or by the use of racism as a strategy to divide and exploit by these people who know better, but they use them, they intoxicate them, they turn them into cult militia type figures like we have now, parading and masking around here. And so it was Nixon's Southern strategy, all right, to this, let's get elected by any means. And then, of course, Reagan, who went to Philadelphia, Mississippi, just miles away from where Schwerner, Goodman, and Cheney were killed, and signaled to these white folk with grievance, I'm with you. And then he went on to talk about Black racism and reverse discrimination and all this madness, and the whole push to eliminate affirmative action on the basis of race-neutral policies. That, I mean, we have to be fair here. This whole history of the brutal oppression and exploitation of Black bodies and Black labor that built this country, just ignore all that. Doesn't matter. That doesn't mean anything. We have to have now, you have to show the intent that somebody wanted to be discriminated against. So affirmative action is out of, and oh God, we can't talk about reparations, certainly, because this is reverse discrimination. We have to be fair. And after all, didn't Martin Luther King say we have to judge people on the content of their character and not the color of their skin? As if that's what Martin Luther King was really talking about. And so this runs deep, deep. But what happened was, at least the movement of the 60s and the 70s kind of drove it underground. So the Reverend Jesse Jackson, in his own brilliant way, says we got to not only talk about the Ku Klux Klan, not only the people in the white sheets, we got to talk about the people in the blue suits and the black robes. And what did he mean by that? He meant by, well, it's not polite. It wasn't for a while to just come right out and say I'm racist, or in fact to admit that the policies that you were recommending and pushing were racist policies. So that when former Governor Nikki Haley, finally agreed to take down the Confederate battle flag in South Carolina, after the massacre of Black people at a historical Black church, then she was hailed as a hero because she took down the symbol. The very next week, her policy recommendations were racist policy recommendations designed to thwart the aspirations of Black people. What do you think voter suppression is? This is structural, this is like outright structural and institutional racism manifesting itself. But she was hailed because she was in one of those, well, she would miss it. Well, maybe she was in a blue suit. I mean, we have this neutral clothes these days. But what Reverend Jesse Jackson meant was these are the polite racists, who can throw a rock and hide their hands, as the old folks used to say, right? And then he talks about, and the Black robes. By that he meant the judiciary, the Supreme Court of the United States, that could rubber stamp, as it did in the Plessy versus Ferguson decision, could rubber stamp if you had these reactionaries embedded in the judiciary of this country. But at least for a while, it was kind of like, polite, but that did not mean that it was gone. It was festering beneath the surface, boiling up, because there's too many Latinx people in this country. There's too many Asian people in this country. There are too many people coming from the Caribbean and coming from Africa to this country. Too many people coming from the Middle East. They may or may not be Muslims, but there are people coming out of the Middle East and coming from the South Pacific Island region of the country. I mean, there are just too many of them. And by God, they're talking about same-sex marriage. They're talking about marrying each other. And they're just taking over our country. And so that anger, that grievance exploded into the open with legitimacy with the election. Who the hell ever thought that Donald Trump could be president of the United States? The architect of birtherism, the one who maligned the Central Park Five and said they should be subjected to the death penalty. I mean, this man who actually excluded Black people from his properties. Whoever thought that clown, the apprentice clown, could be president of the United States? Well, people underestimated this white grievance. And quite frankly, when people don't understand that elections have consequences, and when people are being ideologically, sophisticated about, well, it doesn't matter who's in and who's not, and so forth and so on, because at the end of the day, I'm a revolutionary, and we really need to bring down capitalism, which I agree with, by the way, but it's about the tactical situations that you face. So people, don't worry about it. And besides, maybe if he's in office, then, it'll bring the revolution on sooner. Part of the considerations that were also laid out. Well, I must admit, I was shocked, because when the very first time he called John McCain, one of their own, who was a national hero, who suffered and was a war, I said, oh, that's the end of him. He can't get away with that. Nothing happened. What if Obama had said that? Oh, women just love me. They just enjoy me. They just like run up to me and I grab them into their private parts. You know what I mean? I just do that to them. And they like it. Oh, I said, I know that's the end. And on the debate stage, what is he doing? He's talking about Ted Cruz, hypocrite, chameleon Ted Cruz. He's talking about his wife. He's talking about his wife. And then he accused his father of some kind of conspiratorial activity. He just went on a roll on everybody. And I'm saying, well, wait a minute. Any of these things would have taken Obama down. I remember our brother who's, I'm blanking on his name now. It'll come to me in a minute. He was on the presidential staff. He just made some remark. He's now prominent on CNN. He made some remark, and they had to rush him out of the White House. Some minor remark, and hear all these insults. And then Mexicans are rapists and murderers. Oh, it's got to be the end. Oh, no consequences from the enablers. And then a Mexican-American judge is castigated. It goes on and on and on. He's at his rally saying, basically bragging, I could walk down the Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and they would still vote for me. This is Jim Jones style Guyana, drink the Kool-Aid cult style stuff coming. He was talking about that, egging people on, even mocked a person with disabilities, mocked them, and then, just got away with it. Where were Ted Cruz? Where was McConnell? Where were all of these? Romney tips out a little bit. The so-called moderates, they tip out a little bit. And when they're on their way out of the office, then they get some moxie. Then all of a sudden they get some canonas. They can stand up. You're on your way out. They were terrified because they were putting power and their agenda above principle. And quite frankly, it reminded me of how people, there was a guy in Italy, you remember? He talked about the Jews. He castigated the Jews. He joined with the Führer of Germany in castigating the Jews. But it was said, at least the trains run on time. And so when I hear even some of the critics today, the guy who's retiring out of Pennsylvania, his name will come to me in a minute. Oh no, all of a sudden he's got a lot of courage, right? But then he's asked about, well, didn't you vote for Trump? Well, yeah, but I mean, his agenda, he had a substantive agenda. And now Chris Christie, now he got the Holy Ghost because he's an opportunist too. And some of these people are just downright, just some of the most, and then, again, I guess McConnell is the most hypocrite of them all because they never, ever, any of them stood up to him, denounced him, ever. And now, he was egging people on at his rallies, talking about, oh, go beat this one up. Or if they show up in my rally, this will happen. It's okay. The trains are running on time. The judges are being selected. We're getting our tax breaks for the wealthy. We're getting all kind of little perks and benefits for the wealthy. So we can exploit white grievance. And by the way, there's a reason for white grievance because capitalism is exploiting white working class people too. It's just that they are so, ignorance is not bliss. It is catastrophic. It's just that their target is the wrong target. They're being exploited by the very people who are exploiting them. And then somehow because of racism, that's right, because of white nationalism, because of racism, because they do not want to see black and brown and people of color advance. Because of that, they are blinded. They're blinded. They're blinded to their own oppression. And they're dangerous. When Obama was elected president, there was concern about a black family in the White House. Whatever you think about Obama. Reports of white militias, ammunition sales exploded. That should have been a sign. Just as this assault by these white nationalists should have been a sign. What's going on here? It's all over the internet. We're going to Washington to take our country back on these lies about this election. The elections don't matter. Why are they lying about it? Because they want the power. They want the power to utilize it to advance an agenda, right? And thank God, people marched on ballot boxes in Georgia, the sons and daughters of those who picked cotton on plantations and who were victimized and vilified and suffered indignities under segregation. They marched on ballot boxes. There were more of them that could have. I'm gonna keep pounding on this, but they in fact saved for the Democrats the Senate, and we'll see what they do with it. And in some ways, you can say they saved democracy, because we as Black people have been America's most patient patriots from the very beginning. But in the face of that, now this man is like, can't conceive, because he's an egomaniac. He's a sick, dangerous man. He can't conceive that I lost. No, it's not possible that I lost. And so therefore, I got some stuff for you, right? I had a white nationalist, Steve Bannon, as my policy advisor. Nobody said anything. Can you imagine anybody if Obama had some person who was of similar character? I mean, it would have been over. And even after Bannon left, Stephen Miller is still there, and one of more is still there. Oh, but it's okay. That's just Trump being Trump. This is Trump being Trump. Yeah, Trump is being Trump, all right. He's being Trump being Trump. He's being the orange man because you were willing to tolerate it. You were willing to be complicit. You were an enabler of it. And so now comes the most unkindly cut of it all. When he goes to a rally that everybody been talking about it. Oh, there have been rallies. Black Lives Matter had a rally, and Trump led the troops to try to beat the living hell out of them. Tear gas, all these canisters exploding, people on horses, reminiscent of Bloody Sunday. That's right, you ain't allowed, you ain't coming up in here, Black folks. Black and brown, you ain't coming up with that rainbow stuff. No, you ain't coming up in there. No, I have a Bible, maybe upside down, symbolically and interestingly enough, but you're not coming up in here with that stuff. And so, we saw what happened when Black Lives Matter had a demonstration. They couldn't get nowhere near the White House. And people reminded me, and I had forgotten, of a woman. I don't know if she was a pregnant woman or not, but she was a woman who maybe was having some mental challenges, maybe, got kind of close to the White House, and the Capitol Police shot her because they don't let people get close to the Capitol unless you be white people. Unless you be white people. Unless you can be all over the internet saying we coming. And then you can have the commander-in-chief, Agent Orange himself, with Rudy Giuliani, all jumping up and you got to go and you got to fight, engage in combat. And then he unleashes this white nationalist mob, and they go down and nobody stops them. And they go up into the Capitol. A Capitol, by the way, that was built by Black labor, enslaved labor. The White House, enslaved Black labor. The Washington Monument, enslaved Black labor. You see that brother in there trying to protect them, and he's trying to, and they're chasing him down. They have a Capitol police officer whose head is squeezed and bleeding, and now the most recent incident, they are beating the living hell out of a Capitol officer on the ground. If Black folks had even approached the Capitol, there would have been Black bodies piled up. They wouldn't have tolerated, but they tolerated white folks doing it. People taking selfies, opening up the gates for them. And there was an inside job. Somebody knew what was going on because they knew what offices they were going to and whatever. And then the symbol of this guy and the Confederate flags were everywhere. But this really symbol of this white man with the Confederate flag. We're going to take our country back to the good old days of white male patriarchal supremacy, a white nationalist insurrection. And now, all of a sudden, there's condemnations. Not even a whole lot of that. In fact, look at this. Even after that happened, you still had people vote on this fraudulent thing about the election. Now, some people are saying they're so terrified because of these militias may come and take them out, because you did see them, you know, here come, oh, and Lindsey Graham, give me a break. Oh, I'm out. I mean, he had a substantive record, a consequential record. That's what it was all about. You were willing to do anything. You were willing to have a deal with the devil to get your agenda through. But I'm out now. Yeah, you're out now. You never stood up. And none of them, not one of them, Ben Sass, he tipping every now and then. Romney tipping every now and then. A new senator, a representative named Mace coming out of South Carolina. She's coming in and she's all fired up, and because it's dangerous, because they're attacking her. Because she had the audacity to say that this is not going to work. But when you check out what she's saying is, she said, well, you know, there's this Antifa thing going down, and we really do need to look at this voter fraud thing now. This is just not the way to do it. They have drunk the orange Kool-Aid. So brothers and sisters and friends, my point is they have got to pay the price. The orange man should be impeached. And it doesn't matter whether or not he's convicted immediately or not. Ought to have the stain of being the only president of the United States who has been impeached twice. And then, you know, if they want to wait till after the first 100 days, I ain't got no problem with that. And then convict him so he can never run from office, fine. But the point is, my point is, that does not stop the white nationalist insurrectionist conspiracy that's going on in this country. It's out of the box now. It's been unleashed. Trump is simply the symbol of it. The orange man is simply the symbol of it. And all of these enablers, yeah, I want impeachment so they can vote on it. We want to make them vote on it. Stand up. They need to get down on their knees and beg. First of all, apologize profusely and beg for forgiveness. They need to repent because they're hypocrites, enablers. And so there's, oh, we can't divide the country. What do you mean? No. And I hope that the Democrats are bold enough. You don't have to be mean, but bold enough to move forward with a progressive agenda, because only by moving a progressive agenda, which includes reparations, can white supremacy be effectively addressed. But we are in for some dangerous times. We got to guard ourselves against the pandemic itself, and we got to guard ourselves against this virus, this cult that's now been unleashed. And it's not going to be easy to put it back into the bottle. Well, that's the professor on the soapbox for today. I want to open up the phones now, and I got to tell my studio